All right, our model. What's your name?
Macy.
Macy is our model. All right, and can I get the lights lowered just a little bit in here? Guys, I know this is Creative Live. I want to show you this technique as much as possible. They're going to keep them on me, but I want to lower a little bit here. In a sense, setting this up, I know it's sterile, but we want to show you the concept, is we're using these lights kind of as the lights you see in a reception hall. Just general house lights that you're going to see. And in a reception hall, you're usually going to have less light than this. Obviously, we can't have too much light because then you wouldn't be able to see me on Creative Live. But I want to show you some of the failures of this technique. I want to show you the way I do it, because if you add this to your portfolio, it adds so much dimension and so much to what you're doing. So several things. I'm going to get my camera up. I want to make sure everything's working. Again, I'm going to be in manual mode on my camera. I'm going to be in TTL on my flash. And we're going to get into TTL in just a second. But it's TTL through the lens on my flash. For Canon, it's going to be ETTL. So when I turn my flash on, it says ETTL on the back. For Nikon, it's ITTL. Don't get caught up in all the terminology. Just know that it's TTL. We're in the third generation of that science, and we're going to go over that in a minute, but don't get freaked out on it. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to look. I'm going to raise. Right now, my ISO is at low, 50. So I know that's not good. So I'm going to raise it up to 800. That's a general starting point. I'm not real sure exactly where I need to be. I don't really care at this point. I do know I'm shooting with a 2470. So 24 is kind of that magical number that if I get below that, I'm going to start having handshake. So I'm going to start off at 1/20th of a second. And I want a wide open f-stop. Normally, I'm probably going to have to raise my f-stop here to lock out some light, or raise my ISO, because we have these bright lights. So we're going to see what happens. As a general rule, and I'm going to leave her here right now because I want to make sure to show you a problem. You don't want her right up on top of the background. Now, why would that be?
You want the depth of field.
And I want the depth of field, and what would happen?
Potential reflection of light from the back into your lens.
True, but there's one more very valuable thing. What do I want these lights to do?
Blur. Blur out.
Blur. What happens if she gets too close? What's going to happen?
They're
not going to blur, because my flash will actually light them up too and won't allow that to blur. So that's probably what's going to happen now, unless I really shake. So just stand there and look great. Kind of turn off to the side a little bit, one side or another. There we go. Perfect. I know she feels perfect. I'm going to focus on her. I'm going to keep her in the center, and I'm just going to twist. You can see probably, I don't know if it's coming up, but you can see on that image, everything is really, really bright. You get a little bit of the blur, but you see how it's really bright. You lost the goldenness. You lost the color because the flash is blowing it out. It's not really what you want. She's a little soft, but you can see the light starting to come over her face too. So what I would do is pull her out. So Macy, I want you to stand about right here. And now, without trying to step on the cord and messing up all our technical stuff, give me a nice little pose, Macy. Perfect. I love it. And do the same thing. Now you're going to notice that they're a little darker in the background when it comes up. The lights are here, and you notice why I want her in the center. I'm going to do one that's curved. And normally, if we were in a lot darker room, you wouldn't have near as much ambient light. I'm actually going to lower my ISO and see if I can get some of the ambient light out of here. Now you'll be able to see it a lot better. It should be darker. And at night, you wouldn't have any ambient light. You would literally just have her and the lights behind her. What we try to do, these are Christmas lights because I wanted to show you the really strong example of it. We got a question?
I was reading you turned it down to 200.
Yeah, I turn my ISO down to 200 because I'm trying to, generally in a real life situation, you're not going to have this, so it's going to be opposite. But I don't want to change my shutter speed because I want it to be as low as possible. And I don't want to change my f-stop because I want that actually to be as shallow as I possibly can. So my next step is I'm going to actually lower my f-stop all the way to 2.8, and I'm going to lower my ISO as low as I can. Because that should give me, and I want Macy to step another step this way.
And you actually turn your camera, not the lens.
Correct.
Okay.
We're fixing to turn the lens in a second.
Okay.
So there's a twist and there's a zoom. And so you can do, and that's the fun of this. You can do both. Now if I get too slow, I'm going to drop it all the way down to 1/5. If I do too slow and I do the exact same thing, you see how slow that was?
Yeah.
Now watch what happens with the lights. Goes all over her face, but that's still kind of a cool effect if used properly. But if you slow down too much, you're going to have way too much shutter speed. And if you noticed, I shook and turned the camera, and so it actually didn't take the photo until I actually moved the camera. So that handshake is really starting to come into play. That's why I try to tell you to keep it around whatever millimeter lens you're using, which is why I like, which is why I like using the 16 millimeter, 16 to 35, 17 to 40 type range with this, a wider lens. Maybe even a fisheye could work. I'm not going to go too wide because our backdrop, it wouldn't be effective in this situation. But the wider the lens, the more ambient light I can get in, and it usually works better. So I'm going to move it back up to around 1/15th, 1/20th of a second, not changing anything else, and do the exact same shot. And now we're getting kind of where we want to be. Direct flash still looks nice. I mean, again, we're not trying to do anything spectacular here. We're just trying to, it's more the background effect. The lights, you notice how she freezes, but if you notice where it falls off, she's starting to get a little blurry where the fast twist is. But she's in the center, so that's tack sharp, because that's where the flash is going. On the edges, get really, really blurry. And so that's what you have to concentrate on. That's why I always say leave her in the middle, or leave your subjects in the middle. You don't want to put them on the edge. So if we zoom in, this is the zoom in. You can zoom in or zoom out. I usually go zoom in and then zoom out because it's easier for me. You're going to get this effect. So now it's a whole different feel, and I actually kind of shook it a little bit. Let me zoom in a little bit and see what it looks like. Try to keep it off the background. I might have missed that altogether. No, I got a little bit of it, but not much. Very simple. If you bounce it or angle it like we talked about, if I raise it up, you're going to get it, but I want to see what the light does to her face. There's not much light hitting her now, and look how soft she is. Because the light has to be there to freeze this motion, to freeze your handshake. That's why I like having it direct on the flash paired to off-camera lighting. Because I want that directly there to freeze that action as much as I can. You can get away with it, but this is truly more of an on-camera technique. And as we get farther into the session and we get into the off-camera lighting and the off-camera metering and actually mixing off-camera with on-camera, which is one thing we're going to do tomorrow, you can do everything that we're talking about, all right here with wireless, turning it off, dragging the shutter, doing fast, regular flash, bounce, everything. And that's what we're going to end up tomorrow doing all that stuff. But does that make sense why I like
It does indeed.
the cam? You can also bounce, but if we bounce, it's very much the same. I'm actually going to raise my power and my flash all the way up, and I'm just going to bounce, which is going into the next segment, but I'm going to bounce a light over here to her, and we'll see what happens. Now, where the light is bouncing off her and hitting her, she should be a little more stable, but it's still a little soft. So it's not as blurry because I'm getting bounce. It's a nice directional light, but that's full power on my flash, bouncing off this and coming back, because that's a lot. Now, if I had a reflector right here, which is not really going to happen in a wedding situation, it might work. But if you had someone wearing a white shirt, you could bounce off that white shirt. As I've said before, I've bounced off people's backsides and said, hey, can you help me with a photograph with the bride? Yeah, sure. Stand them right here, and I bounce light right off their butt. I said, would you help me block light for the bride? I wouldn't tell them I was bouncing off their backside, but it works. But that's why you want flash directly on her. So if you move her back again, I want you to move back towards about right there, center up a little bit, Macy. About right there. Give me a pose. Again, here, we already showed you, if I'm here, well, that's way too much light. I forgot to lower it from the previous shot. Sorry about that. That's a big mistake. Here, if you do it, again, I want you to see the difference. Of course, it's hard, but now it's blowing out everything. You're not getting the golden light. But in this situation, you could possibly bounce. And again, we're going into the other section, but you could actually bounce some light here. Whoop. And it's still not enough. It's still not going to be enough. So this is why it's truly an on-camera, direct Most people think you use a direct on-camera flash, it's horrible, horrible lighting. Most of the time, they're absolutely correct. But in this situation, it's a little creativity, it's a little aspect that's going to add a lot to your portfolio. Does that make sense? You sure?
Yes.
Okay. All right, come back forward, Macy. So let me do another zoom, and I'm going to slow this down to about 1/6 of a second, and I'm going to raise my f-stop up to about 1/8 or 1/9. I'm actually going to do 1/4 of a second.
Mike?
Bouncing.
Mike?
Oh, thanks. I'm an idiot. It's like having a lens cap on. I'm a professional. Here, I'm going to actually, because it's so slow, I zoom and freeze, and then you can get away with it. I didn't move much, but now she's focused. So I knew where, that's why I like to go in. I zoomed, and as soon as it hit, I zoom in when I push the button, knowing that it's during that time the shutter's opened, and then I hold it here. Because if I don't hold it here and kind of move it, you're going to have a, well, that's actually pretty cool. You're actually going to have usually a messed up shot, but that's actually not bad. Does that make sense? As I was saying, if I have a long shutter and I move it too much, that's usually what's going to happen. Maybe. There you go. You're going to have the lights all over their face. And so when you have the lights all over her face, generally your shutter speed is too slow. You need to raise it up some. Or you're doing too much twist and shout. Makes sense. I like the twist because it's easier for me, and if you notice, I'm not twisting a ton. I'm not doing this. If you do that, you're going to have crazy lights all over her face. And that's what a lot of people think you have to do. You don't want that. I like your look just then. You're like, ooh. So it's literally very little, very, very little. Nothing hard. I mean, very, very little shake gives you a huge, huge difference in the slow shutter speed. You see, I'm at 1/4 of a second, and I'm still freezing her. She's still not blurry in her face. You're going to get a little of the lights down here. It's hard to see, but there's a little softness on her fingers and on her elbow where the twist is, but it's not bad. So the slower your shutter speed, the less movement you need to do as well. So in a low light situation with this technique, you could barely turn it and you'll be fine. But in a low light situation, lower your shutter speed more. But the more light, which is here, which this is not bad because this is a lot of light in here, and we're at 1/4, but I raised my f-stop to 8.0. Normally I would be at 2.8, 3.2, more wide open. Take away everything that's in the background, the other people dancing, whatever's going on. Now, what can also be done is if you shoot high school seniors or whatever else and you're doing low light, maybe nighttime scene photography, which we do lots of times when we're in Galveston or Houston, we'll photograph as the sun sets around downtown, and we'll either take a break, maybe eat dinner or whatever, and when we come back, it's completely dark, and we'll have all the street lights. And I'll use the street lights as we're using these Christmas lights, these holiday lights, and it is the same thing. So I'll have her out in the street, have the lights, we'll take a shot with everything stable, and then I'll actually lower it, and we'll do a drag the shutter image as well with all the street lights as well. And it completely changes the scenario of what you're trying to do. Yes, ma'am.
So you're shooting at f8, so you're kind of sacrificing your depth of field a little bit.
Here I am.
But so you're just, you know.
Yeah, because we have the stage lights, and it's a little brighter, I needed to knock them down, but I wanted to show you, you can shoot it low ISO, you can do anything as long as you understand how that ISO, f-stop, and shutter speed relates to each other, you can do it. But in optical situations, especially with today's cameras, I like the slowest shutter speed I can get away with is usually right around the millimeter that I'm shooting. It's wide open f-stop, and if that's not enough light, I'll go ahead and raise my ISO up. Because again, it's 1600. This is an old Mark II that I if you look at it, it's just worn down because I use the heck out of it. I love it. And even at 1600, you're fine. With the new Mark IIIs and the new Nikons, you can get away with 3200 all day long, and you're fine. You're golden. So with the new ISOs, you can get away with just about anything you want to do when it comes to these new cameras and ISOs. Let me get a drink here just a second.
Does it matter whether you're using front curtain or rear curtain?
What a great question. And that's where we were going next. You and I are on the same page. I like that. It can, but what is front and rear curtain? Do you know what that actually is of your camera?
When the flash actually goes off relationship to the shutter.
Exactly. So you have two shutters, and you basically, and we're going to do some more examples in just a second, Macy, so you can relax, but just stand right there. Thank you. She's all posed so perfect, I didn't want you to like lock up on me and fall. You have two curtains, first and your second. And so the first curtain is when the curtain opens, the flash fires right away. And then the second curtain closes, and they reset. Second curtain is the opposite. So when the first curtain opens up, it absorbs the light, and then it fires at the very end when the second curtain's closing. So what would that change?
Where it freezes the subject.
Absolutely. Basically what it is when it freezes. If you want trails after throwing a baseball, and you want them, the classic fast pitch with a trail behind it, which one would that be, first or second curtain?
Second curtain.
Why?
You want the blur behind,
Exactly.
not the
Exactly.
blur in the direction that the baseball is going.
Exactly. So you want second, so in a slow shutter, so as you open up the shutter, it's going to catch the blur, and then right as the second curtain closes, it flashes and freezes the action.
Right.
Or if you had first, which is some examples I'll show you in a minute, it's the opposite. It looks like it's being thrown at them, so the trail's coming or behind it, and then the ball's coming towards the pitcher instead of away. So yes, it would change it if you want to. Generally though, with this, I would just leave it at first curtain. Unless it's some motion, but then if it's motion, it kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, you want to freeze this motion. So maybe if they're spinning, maybe you could have a trail if they're doing a first dance. Maybe you could do a second curtain and it would spin, and you'd have that trail, and then it would freeze them in place. Other than that, for this type of shots, I would just leave it in first curtain. But I would suggest you play with it. I would suggest you go in there with first and second curtain, take shots. If you have a dog running around, cat, whatever. Well, cats don't run around, but whatever. Take pictures of anything you have. Cars going by on the street, it works really well. Just don't blind the cars and make them wreck, but it will work really, really well on that.
Can you repeat the basic settings that you start with when you're going to do these types of shots, the aperture and the shutter speed? I know we have a slide for it.
Yeah. Basically what I do is I'm going to set my shutter speed to whatever my millimeter is at right off the bat. I might go a little lower, but if I'm using a 24-70, I'm going to shoot it right around 1/20th of a second, 1/25th of a second. And then I'm going to lower my f-stop to probably the lowest that I know that lens is going to be decently in focus. Because some lenses will be 2.8, but maybe they're a little soft at 2.8. So you might want to raise it to 3.2, maybe 3.5 or something. So that's just your lens. I know that that's a starting point. I had a 1635 at one point, like I said, that I knew at 2.8 it was a little soft. So I never shot it at 2.8, I always shot at 3.2. That's my foundation. And then I'm going to raise the ISO up, and I'm just going to turn my flash off, and I'm going to take a shot in the room, a couple shots, look on the back of my camera, see how light or dark it is. And I'm going to raise my ISO until I get the ambient light that I'm happy with. Once I get the ambient light where I'm happy with, I don't touch my camera settings again. Then I turn my flash on, and then I just adjust my flash compensation. As you saw that one, when I bounced, I put it at +3, and it was fine on the bounce, but when I put direct flash, it blew her out. So I'm going to adjust my flash compensation to where my client is properly exposed. And then I'm going to start playing. And if I twist too much or don't twist enough, I can maybe slow my shutter speed down a little bit, raise it up a little bit to get the actual motion that I want. But that's basically a step-by-step on how I would do the drag to shutter. And again, it looks easy, and it is easy. Like I said, I equivalent to golf. It's very easy to do, but it's hard to get good photos at. And so you're really going to have to kind of practice to get better and better at the session.
Thank you.
Great, yeah. Well, on the same note for settings, Sharon on the chat rooms wanted to know, how do you set the camera to front curtain versus rear curtain?
We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I'll answer a little bit. It's depending on the camera, but it's usually in your menu system, and there'll be set in the little first or second curtain. You'll click in it, and it'll just have a drop down for first or second. By default, it's set in first curtain, because that is what you want most of the time. but you can go into the second curtain and get creative with it. Generally, second curtain does not work in off-camera flash modes. It's only an on-camera flash aspect, so be aware of that. There are some that we're getting a little bit better in technology, but as a general rule, just know that it's an on-camera flash concept.
Awesome, thanks, Mike. And we're getting a little discussion in the chat rooms about auto.
What? No,
I know, right?
discussion in the chat rooms? That didn't happen?
Auto ISO. I know it's not directly related to our content, but could
But
you
it
tell-
is. That's a great
can be,
question here.
Yeah.
I don't like auto ISO,
Great.
personally. I don't like auto anything in the whole scale of things. I know that AV or A is auto in a sense, but I'm still in control of what my final product looks like. When you're in auto white balance or auto ISO, you're not in control of what that final product looks like, and I suggest to get away from that. I don't really care what white balance you use. I personally use flash white balance if I'm using flash. If I'm in a Kelvin situation, I'm gonna use like a 5200 to 5800 number. But I wanna be on something all the time, because if I'm in auto, just like auto ISO, white balance, I'm gonna be all over the place. One image might be really warm, one image might be really cold, and I'm having to correct every individual image in post, and it takes hours. Where if I'm off a little bit on all my images, I can highlight them and click one little, click with the mouse, and they're all corrected. Same thing with auto ISO. I don't like one image would be, if you notice how I was changing the ISO to get the effects that I want. I don't want the camera, me to actually focus in, meter on something else, and it's gonna jump up to ISO 800, and then I'm gonna meter on maybe the white of something else, and it's gonna drop the ISO down to 100. It's completely gonna confuse you. It's gonna give you a hard time because you're not gonna know why I'm not getting the exposure that in my mind I think I should get, and I'm not getting it. So I suggest getting away from the auto ISO. It is getting better on the new cameras, there's no question, but just set it at a number and then again, raise it up. That's the last step. You set your shutter speed, set your f-stop, and then raise that ISO up to get what you need.